Hey there, to here, and welcome to the latest Magical Experiments live stream. So this morning, I decided I would do a part 2 video after I talked with my magical partner about this topic of, what is magical partnership? We looked at it. We'd looked at the previous video, and she said, and this was also pointed out by someone else, like, you did talk about some good stuff, but there was a lot of vagueness. It would have been interesting if you'd gone into some more specifics. Fair enough. I mean, I tend to err on the side of caution sometimes when it comes to what I share. But I think that, one of the things that I'm going to be focusing on general is being a bit more specific in these videos anyway. So this is a good practice for me. I talked last time about what magical partnership looked like in terms of, working with this person. But what I didn't really go into really were the specifics of magical partnership and what magical partnership looks like when you're actively working with somebody. So let's talk about some of the specifics. I would say one of the things that really stands out to me about working with somebody else is that, you each come into this magical practice with your own background and experience. And I did talk about that a bit. She has her background and experience, and I have my background and experience. Her background and experience, includes a lineage that she's part of, but it also includes all the work that she's done outside of that lineage. It includes stuff that she's done with martial arts, for example. It includes stuff that she's done with, in her own internal work. It includes stuff that she's done when it comes to working with different types of spirits and how she's worked with those spirits, both for practical magic and for working with them in terms of devotion and things along those lines. These are all really important practices that, come into play. And then, she's had experience working with Franz Barden stuff and with other forms of ceremonial magic, plus the work that she's done with alchemy in general. So these are things that she brings into this mix. And then I bring my mix in, my work over the years with internal work, Qigong, chaos magic, ceremonial magic, and all the other things that I bring to the mix as well. So, I mean, we both bring these respective things into our mix. And I think that what's interesting is that, like, as an example, I take a very casual approach to ritual, whereas she takes a planned approach to ritual. She plans her rituals out more than I do. And so one of the things that's really come up and that I've noticed is that, on the one hand, I think that, she made the observation recently, like, I like your low effort approach to magic because sometimes, it reminds me that I can relax. I don't have to sweat all the details and get everything exactly right, and I can still pull off effective magic. And on the other hand, I would say that what she's taught me is to plan better and to really put some thought into how I plan things when it comes to magical workings. And I think that's a very specific example where, her strength is her ability to plan stuff out. And my strength, in contrast, is maybe I'm a little bit more relaxed about things. And yet at the same time, those strengths can also have weaknesses on them. So like we've been able to supplement each other and make ourselves stronger as a result because of what we both brought into that. And so like in our own individual work, as well as in the work that we're doing together, this has transformed the way that we approach and think about magical work. And I think that's really a great concrete example of what you can do. So like when you're working with your own magical partner, one of the things you really may want to do is actually, document, kind of document your own past and like what you're bringing to the mix. and ask your magical partner to do the same thing. That was one of the things we did at the very beginning. We talked about our past a fair amount. We actually documented some timeline stuff as a result. And it helped us both appreciate and understand like our respective paths and how we came to where we came to. And I think one of the things that was interesting is one day we were walking in a park and we ended up talking about like when we first started practicing magic, and we realized, we actually have a lot in common from back then. And that in and of itself played a role in how we approached magic. And it made us appreciate each other, but we also appreciated the differences and the way that we approach things differently and how it changes our understanding of things. I mean, it certainly helped me appreciate even more like where she's coming from and how she thinks about things and how that can be applied to magic. So I thought that was really cool. Another thing I would say that's really kind of stood out to me is that as we've done magical workings together, we've both ended up encountering deities. Like when we were doing the Samhain working as a great example, we ended up having Persephone and Hades come through very strongly, and we both ended up actually embodying them for a bit and working with them. And it was fascinating because it was a really powerful working that tapped us into these deities where we might not have done that otherwise. I mean, I'm very familiar with the Greek mythology. I grew up on it, actually. I know that might surprise some of you watching this, but I'm actually very familiar with mythology in general. And so is she. I want to be very clear about that. So is she. But the point, the reason I make that a point is because most people think magical experiments would not necessarily think that. That's why I'm bringing it up. Okay, so no, Anyway, point being, we ended up working with these deities that we might not have worked with otherwise, but they came through so strongly. And part of it is because of the way that we do our magical work. So I want to talk a little bit too, like when we do magical workings together, one of the things I do is the sphere of art, which I learned from RJ Stewart, and I changed and modified it. And she's been learning some of that as a result herself, and we integrate that into our magical work. We do that first to set up the space, and then afterwards, once we're in the space, we basically do her lineage practice, and I'm learning that practice. And so what ends up happening is it creates this gyroscopic effect, because the sphere of art creates a very specific sphere, right, of magical power. And it's basically setting it up and it's excluding what doesn't belong and focusing on what, and basically pushing that outward and actually using it to manifest results. But what it's doing is it's relying upon what you bring into the sphere. So we set up the sphere first, we set that up. But then what we do is we bring in her lineage into it, her lineage practice. And it's interesting because the directions in the sphere of art are a bit different from the directions in her lineage practice. And so it ends up creating also kind of this interesting rotational effect for the magic, is what I'm going to call it. And so what ends up happening is it creates this very powerful effect in terms of the magical working, and it opens up these portals that bring in the different spirits that we're working with. And bring them in very strongly and create some very interesting effects. And I think one of the things that really stands out to me, we've both talked about this, is the amount of synchronicities that end up coming up for both of us afterwards. There are inevitably experiences that we end up having, both internal and external, that end up syncing up with each other to the degree that I've never had this level of synchronicity with anyone else. And I mean, she said she's had it with a couple of other people, but that even so, it's pretty special and significant that it's happening as much as it is. So I think, that in and of itself is really powerful. And it's another form of how this magical working is really coming together, that when you're working with each other as equals, I'm going to come back to that in a few moments. When you're working with each other as equals, it really does bring something into the mix in terms of the synchronicities and the level of work that you have. Now, before I get into the next topic, if you're watching this video and you haven't, and you're not a subscriber, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Go ahead and click the like button. Go ahead and click the bell notification, and feel free to drop in a comment, because I love comments, and that's what part of the things that helps make this kind of these kinds of videos more interesting is the questions that you ask and the comments that you offer. So feel free to do that. All right. So I want to emphasize one thing here. We really approach this work as equals. I said in the previous video that she's my peer and my equal, and I really mean it. And anyone who really has gotten to know me over the years knows that I don't just throw that around very casually. I mean, I'm not, I think that when you have a certain level of experience and practice underneath your belt, you kind of get to say, yeah, I might meet somebody who's had a couple of years of experience, and I'll respect their experience, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their experience translates into the same thing as my own. It just means that I respect where they've been. But when I can say that I have, 30 years of experience, it does make a difference. She has actually a few more years of experience than I do, I think, magically, at least a little bit. I don't know. I mean, we've always, even when we were little kids, we've always had magic in our lives. So, I mean, it doesn't really much matter. I mean, the thing that really kind of stands out to me, though, is that we both approach this from a place of equality. We respect each other's path. And because we respect each other's path and where we've gone, we're able to come together and merge seamlessly together in terms of the magical work that we do. And I would say it's really seamless. I've never experienced this level of synchronicity or seamlessness with anybody else. I've never experienced this level of power. I've never experienced, I would say I've never experienced this level of awareness in some ways around things that I need to work on too. I mean, one of the things that I really value about her is that she does call me out and makes me aware of things. And one of the things that I've really been doing is I've been paying closer attention, especially in the last month or so, really been paying closer attention to like my own internal triggers and things like that come up, and really paying attention to them in relationship to this magical partnership and being more aware of that so that I can work through those things without necessarily needing to broadcast it to everyone or even necessarily to anyone. But then working through those and being able to show up better in the partnership as a result, because I'm like, well, I'm aware of this and I can make this change. And this person is showing me a mirror. I mean, really, she holds a mirror up to me and helps me see the things that I need to work on with myself as a magician, as a person. And I think I do the same thing for her. But I think that's another specific thing that I would really call out, that when you're approaching this work as equals, you really do end up holding a mirror up to each other, and you get to see the things that are wonderful about yourself in regards to that person, as well as wonderful about the other person. But you also get to see the things that need work. And that's okay. I mean, that's what a partnership should do. I mean, ideally, that's the case with any kind of relationship that you have, is that as you get to know somebody, they do help you to see the things that about yourself and them, that are good, and the things that need to be worked on. And if you're able to have a close, comfortable relationship with each other, you're able to speak to that. So I think those things are important, and I would highlight that. Another thing that I would say that's really another specific example is that I would say that in terms of just like practical magic workings, is that we've done some practical magic workings together. And what's been fascinating about that is seeing the changes that have occurred in our respective lives as a result. I mean, because really, we're both seeking to manifest and enjoy the lives that we have. And I think that, like, as a specific example for me, I mean, I would say that I'm getting ready to buy a house now. And I would say that part of that process of buying the house at least came about as a result of the magic that we did, because we've done some prosperity work. And I would say that, and it seems to be the case in her life as well, that there's been some prosperity. And again, a lot of that is really our own respective efforts. But I think that when we've come together magically, we've boosted those respective efforts for each other. So I want to make that very clear. It's not a case of, well, so and so did magic in order to get this to happen for the other person. No, it's like we did magic and it boosted what was already there, what the person was already bringing to the equation. And that's the thing too. Like when you're working with somebody, you're boosting what they already bring to the equation themselves, and they're boosting what you bring to the equation, and you're basically amplifying and enhancing each other's abilities, for lack of a better word. And I think that's something else that's very that when done right can be very powerful. I think we both have seen that in our practice, and it's something that just again kind of speaks to how you can move somebody so profoundly and so directly, um, because of the effects that you can have with each other. um, so those are some specific examples that I would share that I think are really relevant and powerful, and speak to each other, to how this magical partnership is benefiting each other. And I mean, I think, at the end of the day, the other thing, the final thing I would really share with this is that, we're both discovering, as a result of working with each other, that we're going off into different trajectories that nonetheless come back around. Like we're both doing our own thing, and yet doing our own thing ends up bringing us back around to each other. But sometimes the work that we're doing is inspiring the trajectory that we're going on. Like for instance, we're both doing a lot more work with demonic spirits. And some of that's individual work, and some of that is mutual work. And we're doing it because of the fact that we've been working together, and it's just created this awareness in our part that, like, oh, we really want to work with this further. And we want to shift the way that we approach things in a different way, so that we can understand it and we can work with it, and it can transform our thinking and our processes. So this is another example, because then we end up doing things that become very powerful spiritually for us, because what we're doing ultimately is we're opening ourselves up to this fundamental awareness of, here are the things that I want to work on as a result of this person inspiring me. And here are the things, and I'll go do this work, and then I'll come back around and we'll end up working together. So I think, again, these things are very powerful. And it's why I think it's one of the biggest benefits of magical partnership. It's not that you necessarily do everything together. It's that what you end up doing together informs what you do apart. And it makes what you do apart even more powerful. And when you come back together again, it just becomes that much more powerful. And I will say one other thing, and I think this is really important. Enjoy what you have with the person. What do I mean by that? I mean simply this: like, magical partnership is a rare and special thing. It's a rare and special relationship. Enjoy it. Don't long for it. Don't crave it. Don't let yourself simply enjoy it. Be with it. Relax into it. Enjoy the moments that you have, because those moments are going to be more powerful than anything else that you'll probably ever experience in your life. I mean, when I get the opportunity to enjoy her company and work with her, I always feel profoundly moved. And I always feel appreciative of this person in my life, and how she is transforming my approach to magic, how she is transforming my awareness of myself. And I hope that she feels the same way. I think she does, overall. So, but I don't want to speak for her. I mean, at the end of the day, she's the only one who can really speak to that. I can only just speak to my own experience, but my own experience is that she has really profoundly helped me understand and appreciate magic from a different angle. in a way that, like, reading all the different books that I've read and everything else. I mean, and I read a lot of books and I get a lot of insights out of them, but in a way that reading all those books, it hasn't given me. I mean, I enjoy those books. They've helped me out a lot, but working with her, working with somebody changes your understanding of magic in a different way, in a fundamental way, because there's that intimate connection. And that's one of the things that she's really brought to me. And it's something I'm profoundly grateful for. And just as I'm profoundly grateful for her presence in my life, because, um, it's just powerful. And so that's what I'm going to speak to. I'm probably not going to do another one of these videos for a while, just because I think, I think I think that I've addressed the questions that, people had around this topic, but also because I think, it'd be interesting again to come back later on down the line. But I wanted to make this follow-up video because, as was aptly pointed out, yeah, you've covered some stuff and this was helpful, but I'd like to get a few more details. So I've provided some details within reason that I think were, things that she and I discussed that could be included. And, I hope that this helps you. If you're out there working with a magical partner, I hope it inspires you. If you want to work with a magical partner, these are things to be aware of. All right. Thank you so much. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay warm.